All right, I think we're live. Hi, everyone. Very excited to be with all of you virtually, and very excited for the ones who are also watching us live right now, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our panel. My name is Belkis. I'm a Tunisian youth and security practitioner. I'm actually based in Geneva right now. I'm doing another master's, so unfortunately, I couldn't join all of you in the summit, and I couldn't be with you this year. But I heard so many amazing things from all of you, including our great panelists today. So I'm very, very excited to welcome you all to our session on virtual perspectives from youth in high level spaces. Just to give you a quick background, before I go ahead and introduce everyone. So, contributing to the intergenerational disconnect in addressing social issues which are around the lack of youth representation at decision-making levels. We all know the necessity to include young people today. We also know that from statistics, around 14% of national legislators around the world are below the age of 40, which actually is decreasing to 2.6% for below the age of 30. So many things happening worldwide are showing us today that we need more youth inclusion. And evidence also has supported that younger directors on company boards show positive effect on company performance. And so really, whenever you include young people in decision-making spaces, you see a huge positive impact into their institutions and around the world. And so today, based on that, we wanted to bring this panel to you that will feature amazing youth leaders who have consulted in the UN Summit of the Future, who have also been a part of many high-level spaces, and who will be sharing with us their perspectives on their own experiences in advocating for and with young people. Really, the outcome of this event is to mobilize and empowering and empowering a network that will connect youth leaders all around the world. We want to be able to translate these insights that we'll be hearing today from our panelists into action-based projects. We want to raise awareness, and we want to raise initiatives to encourage youth leadership and achieve the SDGs for future generations. So we expect the participants to really have an experience, not just at a one-time effort. We want you to be part of this first step on a journey that will help all of you turn your youth inclusiveness and turn your activism and initiatives into positive change around your community and worldwide, of course. So please use this really insights that you'll be getting, the journey that you'll be hearing from all of our inspiring panelists, to be inspired as well and to help you in staying in touch with reality, but also in connecting with each other and networking and making sure that you know the change makers around you that will help you in developing groundbreaking solutions to tackle the world's greatest issues that we are all going through today. Without further ado, I'm very excited again to welcome all of our panelists. So today I'll be introducing all of them based on their first name. I just don't want to butcher the pronunciation. So I'm going to start with Alexa. She is a women's rights advocate, international security researcher, and a social media advocate as well. She specializes in European affairs, national security, gender policy, and security policy. And she's also a youth delegate at the World Bank, where she is representing young people, talking about the importance of prevention of the false use of AI. She's very passionate about advancing women's empowerment, diversity in US politics, education, and human rights worldwide. Currently, she's a graduate student at the American University, majoring in international affairs, specifically in global governance, politics, and security. We also have with us Sanskriti, who is a visionary computer engineer who became the youngest elected official in the USA at just 17. She's also the chair of the Global Engagement Summit and vice chair of nominations, and has played a pivotal role in mobilizing global efforts towards innovation and development. With a very strong background in technology, particularly quantum computing, very impressive. She is dedicated to advancing cutting-edge solutions for a global good. And then we also have with us Paula. Paula is a young activist who is passionate about holistic sustainability, intergenerational justice, and systematic change. As the co-chair of the Youth Agenda 2030 and a board member of FINGO, the umbrella organization of Finnish Global Development Associations, she actively works for a more equal and sustainable society. And she serves as Finland's youth delegate. She has a master's degree in future studies and excels also in sustainable development, responsible business management, and cultural history. And finally, we have Erlenda with us, who is from Switzerland and Kosovo. She's a teacher and the UN Youth Delegate for Switzerland, and she champions education for sustainable development and early childhood advocacy. She has also been working in the field for a few years now. So welcome, ladies. Very happy to have you with us. And I really am very excited to start with our first question, which is around what or who inspired you to get into your work in youth activism. And maybe we can start with Alexa.
Hi, my name's Alexa. So I would say the people who inspired me to be in activism are the people who I meet and the people who I talk to with in my local community. I'm also part of DMUN Foundation. I'm also the SDG5 ambassador for UNA USA. So especially when I was in the Summit of the Future and the United Nations General Assembly, I've met a lot of advocates worldwide, and they had a lot of interesting stories. And also especially that I'm a woman at the national security field. And the thing is, the national security is still male dominated. And that's what inspired me to fight for women's rights, and especially to fight for diversity. So basically, everyone I work with and all of my colleagues in these NGOs and these advocacy groups is what motivates me to actually be part of advocacy and to fight for my rights as a woman, especially as a person of color as well. In U.S. politics and U.S. foreign policy, it's also a challenge to be that voice in that field and in your own community. So I would definitely say all of the people that I work with and these NGOs and the people I meet in these summits motivates me to actually fight for women's rights and to fight for everyone around the world, especially there's so much countries that are facing crisis, especially women and children are the most vulnerable when it comes to crisis. And, just reading the news and talking to my classmates in school who are from different countries, and to talk to my colleagues at these NGOs through Major Group for Children, Youth, to DMUN, to UNA USA, just hearing their perspectives about foreign policy and about politics and about policy in general is just what motivates me to represent and to be that voice for all people.
Thank you so much. I think really a lot of the inspiration that we get all the time is from the people around us. So that's very inspiring. Thank you for sharing. Paula, what about you?
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation to be here with you. This is a really nice question, and it always kind of gives you time to reflect. And I think I became interested in the United Nations as this huge world-saving organization, and I wanted to be included in the work and see how the work is going. And when I got to those spaces or youth organizations working for the UN themes, I realized that actually it is not working the way I thought it should be. And then I kind of realized that I want to work for all of those people whose human rights are not realized, all of those who are affected by conflicts, and those whose voices are not heard, meaning including future generations, non-human animals, the environment. And I do think that as a privileged white young person, I do have the responsibility to put my hours in for this work.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And now let's hear from Sanskriti.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me, and thank you for that wonderful introduction, Balkis. Really well done. But yeah, so for me, I think I started because of the problems that I was seeing in my local community and around the world. to be honest, I didn't know what activism was when I got started. I just knew that I was really anxious because on the news, all I heard was the world is ending soon because of things like climate change, women aren't getting paid as much as men, and just all of these issues that were happening. And I was like, why isn't anyone doing anything? And then I thought to myself, why am I not doing anything? And then these sort of limiting beliefs came into my head. I was only in high school when I kind of became hyper aware of the world around me. So I'm too young to do anything, or I don't have any money. I don't have enough resources to do anything. And so what I did was I started taking those big issues and sort of changing them to bite-sized issues that I could solve. So I started off with educational reform within my own high school. I went to high school in the inner city of Charlotte, North Carolina, and there were no resources. There were not even like textbooks or laptops that we could use. And so what we did was we fixed one issue at a time and brought in textbooks and resources so that way we could have a better learning experience. And so that sort of pattern that I followed, just like finding things to fix and then figuring out how to fix them, is kind of how I got involved in activism. And it's what I've continued since then. And so I think what motivates me at the beginning was really just like solving those issues. And then as I continued on in my career, as Alexa and Paula mentioned, it's just the other change makers around me. Because the thing about it is, if you start in your local community with a problem that you see, there are people all across the world, especially with the power of the internet, who are willing to help and connect you with the right resources and the right people that you need to solve those issues. So don't be afraid to just get started and let go of those limiting beliefs. Thank you.
Definitely, and thank you for ending it on a very good note. Really, don't be afraid, to start believing, especially acting locally, so you can impact globally, right? And finally, Arlinda, would you like to share with us?
With pleasure. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for having me here. And I'd like to just highlight or put the spotlight on what Alexa said before, the power of connections. I'm just extremely happy to be here in a panel where I have met you, Balkis. You're in Geneva, so I hope very soon we will get to meet one another. But this space is incredible in that it really creates connections that you can foster throughout time. And I think that this is one of the things that truly inspires me to get going every single day and to keep on coming back, despite all the barriers that we face as youth activists or youth advocates in this multilateral space. From my own perspective, so I believe that just as Sanskriti, activism found me more than I sought it. It was all because of these problems that we would hear about and the fact that we might feel as young people sometimes powerless facing this bigger problem or these different issues that we face nowadays. And I never really sought to engage in activism actively, in the sense that I was also afraid of what it was. I think that we can also create a pessimistic image of what activism is sometimes. So maybe I was biased by all of these different stereotypes, but then my interest grew more and more also because of my familial background, coming from Kosovo and having that history of conflict and peace building and peacemaking. I really wanted to do something or play my part in this big beehive. So to do something or to speak up for the people who cannot access these different spaces. I started very small. I got involved into different events related to climate, education, or enhancing the power of culture in these spaces as well. And then that got me to a position as a Swiss UNU delegate, which I don't hold anymore, sadly. But now I'm also very happy to say that thanks to all of these different positions, or also the role that I played as a Swiss representative, I also got to integrate the network of UNESCO, working for SDG 4 with the youth and students. So yeah, I'm extremely happy to be here. I'm extremely happy to continue this conversation, and I look forward to hearing what all of us have to say here today.
Thank you so much. And we're also very excited to be having this panel with all of you. And so now we've done the introductions, we've learned about what inspired you to do this work. I really want to get into the more difficult questions that, you know, we need to ask, right? I initially wanted to ask about the challenges that youth face in meeting inclusive leadership today, but really in answering that, I want us maybe to focus more on the, you know, big event, right, of the past week, which is the Summit of the Future. And realistically speaking, we all know that there have been in the past a lot of pacts that have been adopted, a lot of you know, decision making that happened, but there are always challenges in its implementation, right? And so I would love for us if we can get maybe a step ahead, and before we dive into the you know, the realistic, or when reality hits us when it comes to implementing, right, this pact, what do you, from your own experience, anticipate when it comes to the challenges that the implementation of the Pact of the Future or the Declaration on Future Generations will have? Maybe you can link this if you want, your own experience, your background, your region. So I'd really like us to think a bit more about that. And maybe we'll start with Paula this time.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, there would be so many things regarding this one, but I think I'm going to focus on the spaces in the high level spaces, and for example, things that we now have in the Pact for the Future. It was wonderful to be part of the Summit of the Future last weekend. I get to attend as a part of our Finnish delegation. And something that I feel now that we have the pact, and there are the youth chapter stating many wonderful things, but not so kind of concrete measures. And I'm acting as the chair of the Youth Peace and Security Network here in Finland at the moment. And so this agenda is something that I'm really focusing on at the moment. And I'm happy to see that in the pact, the youth peace and security agenda is not under the youth chapter, but under the international peace and security, which is wonderful. So it's not only youth for youth issue, but it's a issue for all. However, in the language, there is no mentions about national action plans, but more basically national roadmaps. And I do think that now that we have youth present in the official language, many countries or member states want to include youth as a faces, so that they can say that they have included young people and they will be present in the meetings, but they are not present in the actual negotiations, the preparation work. So I'm afraid, or I hope that it's not going there, but I'm afraid that it's the easy way to include young people, to only include they in the high level meeting where others can see that the young people are present. So that is something that we are working for, to include young people also in the negotiation processes, but maybe that's one of the biggest things that I now fear that the wonderful pact will lead us to. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that food for thought. I think this is one of the issues that's been existing for a while, unfortunately, even after the implementation of the YPS agenda. But, you know, this is, like I said, we were trying to think a step ahead of time. So maybe that will facilitate sort of trying to mitigate, right, this challenge in the future. And now going to Arlinda, what do you think about this?
I can only comply with what Paula said. I also had the great honor, privilege to be at the Summit of the Future. I actually just came back today, so I'm still in the hectiness of it. But I think that mostly the pact should go beyond its symbolism. It is true that we have made history in the sense that we now have a pact that is supposed to unite us all together for the same cause. We know that there's an urgency to act. It's been repeated multiple times that we are way off track with the SDGs. And even if we were to reach them by 2030, we would still be having a lot of issues. We would still be having millions of people, millions of children out of schools. We will still be facing gender inequality. So we now know that we have a pact. We now know that symbolically we can move forward all together let's say. But one of the most difficult parts is implementation. And as you said before, maybe we will go into this question right after, but I really hope that we will try and make, for example, the topic of future generations a real thing and engage in a real discussion with the governments, with civil society, with youth, with all the different groups that exist in communities, so that we can truly take into account, for example, the Declaration for Future Generations or the Global Digital Compact and the pact in itself. I think that would be very, very important. And I'd just like to highlight here as well that during the Summit of the Future processes, civil society has been very, very active. And I believe that it's one of the processes that has the most engaged with them. And I truly hope that in the future, this is what we will continue to see within the UN, but also in all different intergovernmental or governmental processes, that we will have these voices of the people who are living in those harsh situations that will truly engage with the processes and will feed them with their knowledge, with their expertise, with the different reports that already exist, and so that we can then move forward. So my hopes are that we will move beyond the symbolism of all of this and move towards implementation. How we do so is with civil society and engaging with all the different groups, the private sector as well. But yeah, I truly hope that we will move towards that. I'm waiting to see also what the other panelists have to say, and then we can engage maybe in the implementation. That is another big chunk and a big question.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I wish there was like a reaction tab so I could like clap, because no matter how many times we say that, it really isn't enough. But let's move now to hear from Alexa.
So I just wanted to add with Paula and Erlinda's discussion. I was also at the Summit of the Future, and it's really unfortunate to see how little youths are in the actual summit. And the thing is, the Summit of the Future is supposed to be for the future generation, and it's really sad that there's not a lot of youths present. And the thing is, a lot of us were not even included in discussions, and a lot of us didn't even get interventions to say like our own ideas for the Pact of the Future. So I think that's a thing that's very disappointing. It's because we are the future generation of young leaders, but then again, we are not included in the discussion and the negotiation. So even if we work so hard in our local communities to represent young voices. So I think there should be an improvement of youth inclusion, and also to open doors to other young advocates to actually participate at these spaces, especially if we want to mobilize the next generation, if we want to educate youth about the United Nations and about the Pact of Future. If like there's not a lot of young advocates in this space, then it's a little bit harder to deliver the agenda of the UN to our local community. And in regards to, as a women's rights advocate, I did see like in the Pact of the Future, there's something about women's rights. But then again, there's so much other countries worldwide who are suffering from gender-based violence, who are suffering from discrimination. And even here in the United States, I know the US is a privileged country compared to these other countries, but we also have our problems when it comes to women's rights. When some Republican states are planning to ban abortion, there's still a lot of misogyny going on in their society, and there's still lack of female representation in spaces such as national security or even politics. And that's something that I always advocate for, to always represent young voices, to always represent my community, represent women all across the US, but also all across the world. I think that I think the Summit of the Future is such a good initiative. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a really great space to have a platform as a youth delegate. But I think youth inclusion needs to be improved, especially that a lot of youth advocates wanted to talk to older officials, to talk to senior officials, who actually create the decisions in each policy, and not a lot of them were able to do that, or not a lot of them did it at all. I remember just coming up to government officials and senior officials, like they don't sometimes like they are confused and why you're coming up to them and to share your ideas. So I think normalizing the idea of building the relationship between youth delegate and official and UN senior officials, I think that's very essential, so that we could have our voice be heard and we could properly represent our communities.
Yes, I cannot agree more. Unfortunately, it continues to be, like you said, they find it a bit weird sometimes that we're suggesting solutions while we are literally the change makers. But yes, hopefully that will change in the future as well. Sanskriti, what about you? What are some of the challenges that you're anticipating?
Yeah, I totally agree with all of the panelists and echo their words. And I think ideally what would happen is that after this pact, the momentum keeps going and there's a domino effect across private sectors, across grassroots movements, across multi-nations, across civil society. And I think what happens is because of things like tokenism, where as mentioned, they only mention the youth to be able to say, oh yeah, we have like the youth voice accounted for. And because of things like lack of transparency and dissemination of information and resources, that domino effect doesn't happen. And sometimes it doesn't happen, actually, usually it doesn't happen in the places that need it most, countries that may not have as many resources, issues that are often overlooked, like women's rights. And so I think to sort of go over this and troubleshoot this, what we need to do is from the grassroots up, reach out for these resources, ask questions, go up to those officials and hold them accountable and be like, okay, you said you are accounting for youth voices. Can you tell me how exactly you're doing this? And so that way that domino effect continues to happen. And so I've been reading in like the comments from Facebook and YouTube and seeing all of these young change makers from across the world. And I think I challenge all of these young change makers to, reach out, figure out what resources the United Nations has to help them, to help their NGOs, or to help the issues that they're trying to solve. And so that way that domino effect continues to happen. And the Pact of the Future isn't just a document, it's something that is being disseminated into local communities.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that insight. And before we jump into the next question, I actually want to encourage everyone to start putting your questions because we'll be doing a short Q&A at the very end. So we're able to see your comments. Feel free to add the questions there and we'll take a few at the end. And since Kriti really already took us into the next kind of phase of this panel where I wanted to talk more about solutions and resources and how can we as young people respond to these challenges that definitely are going, to come up in the future with implementation, whether we like it or not. And so I would like maybe now to hear from Alexa, if you want to tell us more about the resources that you think might be helpful for young people to respond to any challenge in the future, maybe even resources from your own work or platforms that you have used before and you found to be very useful.
I would say take advantage of social media. That's what I always do. I always post on my Instagram. I blog a lot about the United Nations. And the thing is about social media, it just reaches everyone. So in order to raise awareness, especially for the younger generation, it's part of the Pact of Future to the Global Digital Compact. To prevent disinformation is something I specialize in as well. Just you take advantage of social media, post your photos, what you think about the United Nations, what do you think about the Summit of the Future? And people do read it. Maybe post on LinkedIn as well to reach the young professional audience. And also, I would say reach out to your NGOs, get involved in your clubs and universities. If you have access to your government, take advantage of that. And to go to these conferences, just keep learning from these people, and take advantage of. I would highly suggest to take advantage of social media. The thing is with social media, it got my activism to the next level. I reached a lot of people with my blogs, with my Instagram. And just like raise awareness, especially because a lot of young people don't know how to be involved with the United Nations. They don't know how to be involved in their local communities. I've talked to a lot of young people who still don't know that there's such thing as a youth delegation or like a youth NGO or youth-led NGO that could get you into UN spaces. I would highly suggest improving communication on that in your local community and in your school. And also, there's a lot of NGOs that are putting applications online. So I would highly suggest to look at your LinkedIn or to research on your local NGO if they're recruiting anyone for future delegations, and just reaching out to other young advocates as well. so that they could actually help you get more opportunities in these spaces.
Amazing. Thanks a lot for sharing all of that. Arlinda, what about you? Any resources you'd like to share with us?
About the special or specific resources, one thing that comes to mind, but it's not really a resource, it's maybe more of an advice, is to take risks. Maybe it seems very obvious or very cheesy, one or the other, but it's to get out of our comfort zones, to speak up, as Alexa said. It's to engage, it's to not be afraid to build connections with the other people, and to not be afraid to go to the people who are affected or who are working on the same issues that you would like to work with. I think it all starts with a conversation. And after that conversation has happened, it always leads or sparks other ideas, other ways to engage. This is maybe also where we can build these different solutions that are tailored to each and every one of us, because maybe we have different needs or we want to speak up about different things, and so that we can use different means in order to achieve that goal. Another more tangible maybe solution for me would be to really attend those capacity building sessions. For example, I'm GCY. I know that they really often do that ahead of every big UN conference. And I think this is a very good thing to already get your foot into the system and already get to know how it all works. Because in order to be effective, you also have to understand what are the underlying rules, or what are the underlying protocols. And I think that this only makes us more resilient and more and stronger in a sense, so that we can then face the big system and face the people who are working in it, who might not be from that youth community, let's say.
Thank you so much for sharing. Great advice indeed. Paula, what about you?
Thank you so much. Well, the resources and the ways that we can work, and I think it's a really interesting question that that I'm pondering a lot, as we do not have all the resources ourselves, as we are usually volunteering. So I kind of want to also focus not on the kind of spaces that we might be given to, but the spaces that we can take. And as the Secretary General said in one of the speeches in the Summit of the Future, that the power is not given but taken. So I kind of want to focus on those things that we can, as young people, we can do and what we want to do. And I'm also really happy to see lots of young entrepreneurs, in many level entrepreneurs, not only like firms and stuff, but also this kind of entrepreneurship coming from young people. And I must say that my experience during the Summit of the Future, the great experience did not come from the kind of official delegation, but actually being present with other people, connecting with them, and actually kind of having the courage to pitch some of my ideas that the people actually were interested in. And so I now have kind of pitched many ideas that apparently people like, and that's why I'm now involved in many great projects. For example, starting the conversation of establishing a future generations impact assessment tool here in Finland with the state-funded innovation fund Sitra, which is like a big deal. I could even like dream about it. So I think we as young people, we need to start thinking about after the Agenda 2030 and use that as our resource, that we have ideas and ideas for the future, and just believe the resources, believe in the resources that we already have. Yeah, let's just make the world look like whatever we want to, and not ask permission from others.
Exactly. Very, very true. And Sanskriti, any advice you'd like to share with us, or resources?
Yeah, for sure. Again, I echo everyone's thoughts, and I think And Sophie's joined as well. Awesome. But I think one of the biggest things is that you probably won't be able to solve these big issues by yourself. And so, to echo everyone's thoughts once again, is to connect with people who are already doing that within your local area or internationally. I would like to highlight the UN specialized agencies. So there's 17 to 18 specialized agencies that are focused on tackling the sustainable development goals from different angles. So for example, the ITU, the Intertelecommunications Union, focuses on technology issues. The World Food Program is another agency. You probably have heard of the World Health Organization during and after the pandemic. And so if you have an issue that you care about or an issue that's affecting your local community, go ahead and reach out to these agencies, because chances are someone in that agency is working on that specific issue that you're worried about. So I think that's an often overlooked resource that we don't realize we have, because when I used to think of the UN, I would think of it as like a monolith of men in business suits who are just like writing these briefs who can't help me. But in reality, it's a very sort of machine reorganization, in the sense there's a lot of gears that are turning, and these little agencies, these different agencies, are those gears.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Sophie, welcome. I know you've had a few difficulties connecting, but thank you so much for being with us. Just to give everyone a quick background, Sophie is a passionate environmental activist based in California. She's also the founder of the Clean and Green Initiative, which is a nonprofit environmental organization with over 670 members spanning over 30 different countries and a dedicated team of over 20 volunteers. And Sophie, I'll just take you right into it. We wanted to ask if there are any resources that you'd like to share with young people that can support your work.
Yeah, so I sent one of the resources in the private chat. Unfortunately, the comments, for some reason, it's not letting me post because it says I have to like connect a YouTube account. So if someone who has like the capability could send that, it's a really good resource. It has a youth handbook on how young people can become more involved in helping to advocate for the SDGs. And it has a lot of guidance in terms of what specifically you can do to further the SDGs. Like, it's made by the United Nations, and so it's very specific guidance on how you can become involved. And I think another thing to note here is that a lot of times young people just don't think that they have the ability to change things because, you know, they aren't in those, a lot of times aren't in like high level spaces. But I think no matter where you are, or no matter, you know, whether you're involved in an organization or you have, you know, a position where you are influential, there's still things that you can do. And it's actually very surprising the amount that we're able to do, especially because we're now in a more digital age. It is so much easier for you to become involved with environmentalism and activism as a whole. And for example, I was involved with policy advocacy with an organization in California called California Youth versus Big Oil. And before getting involved with policy advocacy with them, I had sort of thought, well, policy advocacy isn't really something that I can do as a young person. It's something that only the people in Washington do. You have to be a politician. You have to be, you know, you have to have gone to law school. You have to be you have to have all these qualifications. And it was like something that I sort of built up in my head. But in reality, young people nowadays can do so much more than they could have done in the past because we have so many more resources. So, for example, we sent bill proposals and pitched ideas for environmentally sustainable bills to lawmakers, and two of our proposals were actually ended up being adopted by a California assembly member. And so it just goes to show that even if you don't have, you know, traditionally like any sort of experience in an area that would traditionally like be perceived as like, oh, I did law, so that means I can do policy advocacy. Even if you don't have any experience like that, there's still ways that you can become involved. We didn't write any legal language for our bill proposals. We sent research sort of ideas, and we didn't draft like a formal bill, but it was still effective in being able to influence change. So even if you're a young person, even if you don't have that experience, there's still so much that you can do. And a great way to get involved with those things is to join organizations, but there are also things that you can do just on your own. You know, like you're able to find the contact information of your representatives and you can contact them directly and let them know anything that you think. And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot that you can do, and I would caution you from immediately dismissing your own capabilities based on age alone.
Thank you so much for that, and then thank you so much for joining as well. So, Paula, would you like to add something? Yeah, of course. Go ahead. Sorry, I couldn't see your hand. It was hidden behind
Yeah.
you.
Yes, sorry, I'm not sure how this works, but nice that you saw that. Actually, I do want to add one thing, and it's a Future Agents Now project, which is done by Finland, Denmark, and Estonia, who have a long history with UN youth delegates, and they have launched this kind of guidebook on how to establish UN youth delegate programs. For example, in your own country, if you don't have that program already. And they are launching their new guidebook, handbook for young people or UN youth delegates next Monday in New York. So if you want to get a invitation to the event, I think UN DESA can forward the invitation, but all the documents can be found online as well. But if you do want to establish a UN Youth Delegate program in your own country, you should definitely look at those.
Great. And yeah, I think that's a great resource for sure. And you already kind of took us into the final question, where I wanted us to really leave everyone, before we jump into the Q&A, with something more practical. So maybe if you can share with us one resource that has helped you. So whether that is a website, an application, an app on your phone, a newsletter, anything that is very specific that everyone can now just quickly Google and find. Maybe we can start with Sanskriti this time.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing is connecting with people and finding like-minded people who are also passionate about the causes that I'm passionate about. And some of the causes that I'm passionate about are very niche, like, for example, quantum computing, as Balkis mentioned in my introduction. And so I thought there's probably no one in the world that cares about quantum computing or diversity in quantum. And so I was like, okay, like maybe it's just going to be me, that's fine. It was anything but the case. As soon as I started doing actionable things within that field, people started reaching out saying, I'm passionate about this too. And I found out that there are millions of people across the world passionate about the same issue that I am. And so reach out to people using social media. Instagram is a great tool for youth activists, as Alexa mentioned, as well as LinkedIn. And if you guys are already a part of this conference, you know the power of reaching out to people and what those connections can bring you. And then the second thing that really helped me was Googling different resources on how to be an organizer, how to be an activist, and how to be effective. Because one thing that you'll realize as a youth activist or a youth in high-level spaces is oftentimes, because you're a young person, you are held to a higher standard than you would be otherwise. And so you have to figure out how to sort of prove yourself or add value to these spaces, which is kind of unfair, but it's also really intimidating. And so just having books like How to Be an Activist by Vanessa Holburn sort of in my toolkit was really helpful for me to making sure that I felt like I had enough knowledge and resources to be able to make an impact. But again, don't let those limiting beliefs get in your way, and don't let how other people are perceiving your activism get in the way either, because literally so many people are going to doubt you and doubt the change that you can make. And then those same people, after they see what you've been able to accomplish, are going to turn around and ask for help or ask, hey, can you help me do this? And so don't let those limiting beliefs externally or internally impact your work. You know what you're there for. You know the impact you want to make.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that inspiring piece of advice. Paula.
I want to second Sanskriti with all of the points. Wonderful points, connecting with people. That way you get the courage to do when you surround yourself with people who are also ambitious with the same things. And just if you're ambitious and inspired for something, just read about the thing, discuss about the thing with with your fellow actives. So I think it kind of comes from the inside. So there is no one way to do it. But for example, if you want to be involved within the United Nations, I do think that the UN journal, where you can see when the meetings are up and who are going to speak, what is the agenda. It's a really good way to see what is happening at the moment. Just all of the resolutions, it's a huge amount of information. But if you want to get involved within the United Nations and speak the language that the officials are speaking, then just start reading. But I think whatever you're interested in, just get familiarized with the discussions that are at the moment. And one tip, it's not, I will not suggest it as a, the best and only, but I use ChatGPT to kind of cover resources. For example, if it's a new topic for me, what are the most important resolutions regarding this topic? It's a fast way to start browsing the websites. So, but don't only use ChatGPT, but it's a good one sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say only for research, not to do the work for you. But I definitely really relate to your point of educating ourselves before we do that outreach work and that advocacy. I think it's very, very important to understand the system, because I see that also in my work a lot with young people, is that they want to help, they want to contribute, but they don't really know how, because they don't really know the dynamics, right? And so speaking the language, like you said, is very important. And that starts by doing research, reading, and everything related to it. So thank you, Paula, for that. Alexa, what do you think?
I would highly recommend, again, just like what everyone's saying, do your research, look at social media. I also highly recommend Major Group of Children Youth, because that's how I actually started. I know they have like a website where you could subscribe, and they'll update you with conferences, and they usually give a lot of passes for you to actually get access to these spaces. And also, I would highly suggest to just trust your knowledge and trust your voice. Never doubt yourself. Just always believe that you know what you're doing, you know what you're saying, as long as you back it up with credible articles. I would highly suggest Brookings. I read a lot in Brookings or Council of Foreign Relations to back up on what I'm saying, or to back up my defense, to know that I'm credible, that everything I say is actually right. I would also suggest to always be confident and be yourself, and just advocate about what you're passionate about. For me, I'm passionate about women's rights, and the thing is, when I talk about women's rights, I always talk about like my experience and why I'm passionate about it, and that's what inspires other people as well. So I would highly suggest connect with other people, make them connect with you, share your story, reach out to people, and take advantage of social media, and let people know that they are not alone if they feel misogyny or discrimination in these spaces, especially as a young person, because a lot of young people in these spaces actually feel like they're really afraid to actually have their voice out there, because they're afraid that someone might say, oh, this is wrong, or you're not you're not credible enough, or you're not qualified enough for that specific topic. But even with those comments, I would highly suggest always just keep fighting, and always don't listen to negative comments. Just trust yourself and always think positive whenever you're in these spaces, and to always find support as well from your colleagues. Always surround yourself with the right people who are willing to support you. That's also really important in activism, is to know who you're working with, and to find people who you could be friends with at the same time, colleagues, because in that way that could also motivate you to pursue this career.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of that. And finally, Arlinda, any final thoughts?
Thank you so much. And again, I can only concur with what has been said, because I use all of these different devices, but I've also been working with some of you here. So I know we use the same tools, and we exchange also the best practices that one another uses. I think that when we navigate the space, whether it is the high-level space, the national or local grassroots, you always have to have an open mind and have open perspectives, and also be very flexible, because things might not turn out the way you want them to turn, but they might turn even better. So you really have to be flexible and not just stick to one very, very precise idea. And And that open-mindedness goes also with connecting with the different people, as you've already mentioned. On my side, what has been very, very useful is in finding allies within the different spaces that I navigated. Doing things alone is great, but doing them with someone else is even greater. And I can only speak of myself once more because Paula is here, and I know we have a strong connection and we have worked together as your delegates. But we also engaged in the Summit of the Future processes together, and we were able, with representatives of the UK, of Zambia, of the delegates of Africa as well, to create a movement to include the voice of young people for the Summit of the Future. And we are extremely proud of that and to have contributed in that process. But alone, once more, it wouldn't have happened. It is very important to know that it's in scaling that we make a difference. It's in scaling our initiatives that we can create transformation. So again, getting into the space alone is amazing, and you will learn so much and you will have an impact still. But being open to connecting with the others and finding allies and working together, not making adversaries adversaries because you're working on the same topic, for example, but really working together as a united group. Not only does it send an important message to all of these parliamentarians that represent us and who are older than us, but it also shows that we have the expertise, we have the knowledge, we have the will to have a place, to have a seat within those different processes, and that we are knowledgeable and that we can truly do it. So I myself am very happy that I found people like Paula, Alexa, Sanskriti, who was there before, Sophie, you as well, Balkis, because I know that together we can leverage our work and we can truly create change. And again, I'm going to end just with another more tangible advice or solution or best practice. It's the newsletters. You mentioned it before, Balkis, but I think that they are very important. And the ones that the UN issues, for most of them, they are very complete. They have a lot of resources. They offer a lot of free programs that you can attend, a lot of conferences that you can attend as well. And they are amazing at building capacity, but also connecting people. So I would recommend the UN Civil Society one, which is truly amazing. The UN Youth Office, specifically targeting young people. The UN Women one. Education Cannot Wait. Amnesty, Plan International, MGCY, the IOM, all of these different ones that truly can create a change or can lead you to connecting with people working in your field.
Thank you so much for that. And that's a lovely note really to end on. I'm trying to see if we have questions in the chat, but I'm not really seeing anything just yet. But I really wanted to thank all of you for this great advice, for the insight. I also want to be mindful of everyone's time because I know we're around the hour. But thank you so much again. I really hope this was insightful, and I really hope this was also inspiring, right, for young people who are watching this panel, for young people who even I know so many who wanted to attend Summit of the Future, didn't get their visas, couldn't travel, were in finance. And so I hope this really facilitated that accessibility for many of them and that they were able to follow this conversation online. Thank you so much also for Sanskriti that I know is unable to join us for now, but thank you again for all of your thoughts and your input. To all young people who are watching, please continue your work. Do not give up. Find a group, surround yourself with a healthy environment, continue your advocacy, learn and relearn and construct knowledge, and call for a shift in narratives, participate. I always say, you're doing good work when you're being challenged because you want to change the current system. And so do not give in, right? We need with this pact of the future, and we're with the more involvement that we have as young people in the United Nations, we want to take advantage of that and we want to push for more advocacy. So don't give up. We're all in this together. We have to do it for the sake of our future. And yeah, we're here to support each other. And again, thank you so much, everyone. I really hope again that you joined all of this. I know it's still daytime in New York, so wherever you are in the world, I hope you have a great afternoon, great night, and we'll see all of you hopefully in future events. Okay, hi Sanskriti, you joined very last minute. I think we're still live if you want to just say goodbye quickly.
Thank you guys so much. And yes, please continue the work that you're doing. It's very important. And don't let those limiting beliefs get in your way.
Amazing. Thank you. Take care, everyone. And I hope I'll see you very soon.
Thank you all.
Thank you.